Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss.
What's good, y'all? It's your big homie, the Armchair Operator, and today I got another versus video for y'all. So today we're going to put the Shadow Systems DR920 up against the Springfield Echelon, and we're going to see which gun comes out on top. Now, if you're not familiar with my versus videos, the basic point behind them is to put near peer guns together to see how they stack up to one another in terms of feature set, ergonomics, shootability, reliability, cost of entry, all that good stuff, right? So the whole point of this is to help you guys to make a decision if you're out there on the market and you're thinking about purchasing either one or the other. Now, I will say that there's a lot of subjectivity involved, of course, because this is, coming from my point of view and it's my video, but I do my best to be as objective as I possibly can. So just know that if one gun wins and you prefer the other one, then basically you win. Like I said, this is just a guide to help you guys make a decision as to which one you might want to add to your collection. All right, y'all. So with all that out of the way, let's take a look at today's contestants and let's get into this versus. All right, y'all, here we go. We have our two contenders here. We got the Shadow Systems DR920 on the left, and we got the Springfield Army Echelon on the right. So if you're familiar with my versus videos, they generally go a little something like this. We have 10 categories that each gun is going to be compared to. You get a maximum of 1 point for each category. 2 of the categories, there's a possible score of a half a point each for a total of 1. And the categories are features, accessories, ammo capacity, ergonomics, portability / concealability, shootability / reliability, disassembly, aftermarket support, MSRP, and the value for your dollar. All right, so we are going to fly through this really quick. I like to start with the features first. So with that being said, let's get into the features. Okay, now let's talk about the features. But first, before we get started, we're going to do a quick clear check of both firearms. Yes, this particular firearm is unloaded. Magazine is unloaded, and it is safe. We're going to do the same for this guy here. As you can see, it is unloaded. Magazine is unloaded. This weapon is also safe. All right, so again, features. Let's look at the sights. Both guns have night sights. Where they differ is the type of sights. So with the Shadow Systems, we have trying to line that up for the camera for y'all. We have a tritium glow front sight and a blacked out rear sight. With this particular iteration of the Shadow Systems, not the Shadow Systems, I'm sorry, the Springfield Army Echelon, we have tritium glow front and rear sights. Both sights are metal. Now, honestly, this is going to be one of those things that's going to come down to personal preference at the end of the day. However, since this is my versus video, I can only go by my particular opinion. And for me, I always prefer the tritium glow front and rear sights. And my reasoning for that is it's just easier for me to naturally pick up my sight picture in a low light situation with night sights in both the front and the back. So in terms of sights, I got to give it to the Echelon. Now, if we're going to move down from there, let's talk about the slide serration. So as you can see, both guns have pretty good slide serrations, both in the front and the rear. The Shadow Systems, their slide serrations are not very deep. They're good, but they're not very deep. Okay? Like I said, they definitely do get the job done, and you also have the serrations up at the top to reduce weight. And I think these will also help to reduce a bit of glare if you're shooting out in the daylight too. And we also have some, in addition to the serration, we have some lightning cuts in the actual slide, which is really cool to reduce reciprocating mass. In case I didn't already state, this is the elite model, the combat elite model for the Shadow Systems DR920. They have a couple different ones. They have the combat version, and they also have the Foundation series now, but this is the elite one with the non-fluted barrel. I'm sorry, with the non-threaded barrel. This barrel is actually fluted, but we'll get to that in a second. Moving over to the Echelon. The Echelon has actually really good slide serrations, both front and rear. They're very aggressive. Plus, I also like the fact that they have these two little ledges right here in the front, so you could actually pinch and press check right here if you want, or you can pinch and press check right here in the back, or you can rack the slide from either position, which is actually really nice. So when it comes down to the slide serrations, again, I have to give it to the Echelon. Reason being, in more practical applications, I just feel like that these serrations will be better for people overall. They're grippier, they're easier to grab, especially if you have gloved hands, wet hands, hurt hands, cold hands, or whatever kind of hands you got. These are just going to be easier to grab overall. So serrations, Echelon. All right, continuing on with the feature set. Now we talked about the barrel. Let's talk about the barrel. So the barrel here, we have a burnt bronze fluted barrel. Please excuse the gun oil. Anyway, like I said, we have a burnt bronze fluted barrel on the Shadow Systems. The purpose of this, one, it just looks really nice, number one. Number two, as far as the fluting, it reduces overall weight. So it has both an aesthetic value, and it also has a practical value, which is really good. And this barrel is also made out of, I believe, 416R stainless steel, just so you know. Now, moving over to the Echelon. The Echelon has I believe that this is just a black stainless steel, not stainless steel, I'm sorry, cold hammer forged barrel. A nitrided cold hammer forged barrel, which is really good. And if you know anything about cold hammer forged barrels, you know that they are some top quality barrels and they last a good long while. So that's actually really good. You can tell that this particular gun was made for duty use in mind. Absolutely. So when it comes down to the barrel, that's going to be a bit of a tough one. Again, that's personal preference. I like the look of the Shadow Systems, but and also the fact that the fluting reduces the weight. But I also love the fact that the Springfield Armory gives you a cold hammer forged barrel for a pretty affordable price. So as far as barrels go, I'm just going to call it a tie. And from there, let's continue on with accessories. Continue on with the features. I'm sorry. Moving on from there, both guns are textured pretty well. The Shadow Systems have textures on the frame here. We have a texture on the front of the trigger guard here. Texture along the entire length of the grip. Texture on the back of the grip here. This gun is actually very well textured. We also have a undercut here under the trigger guard. So that's really cool. Looking at the Springfield Armory, Springfield went literally above and beyond with their texture. And this gun has texture all over the place. Texture on the frame, texture on the takedown lever, texture along the full length of the grip, both sides, on the back, on the front. We got a double undercut here. We got texture here. We got texture here. We got texture here. We even got texture here on the end plate here for the slide. Like, this gun is just textured overall. So as far as the aggressiveness, the Shadow Systems feels a little rougher than the Springfield Armory. But I mean, quite frankly, the Springfield Armory just has a lot more texture. So with that particular feature, I gotta give it to the Springfield Armory. Moving on from there, the Springfield Armory also is fully ambi, while the Shadow Systems is not. The Shadow Systems is based on the Gen 3 Glock platform, hence why it's not ambi. So this particular gun takes it in the ambidextrous category. And the last feature I'm going to talk about, well, actually, no, there are two more. Let's talk about the rails. So the rail, you got a universal rail for the Shadow Systems, which is the Glock style U-rail with the single notch, which we're all familiar with. The Shadow Systems has the M1913 Picatinny rail. Now, there are pros and cons to both. The good thing about the Shadow Systems having the universal rail is that it, it makes it compatible with Glock holsters, accessories for Glocks, and so on and so forth. So when you're talking about Glock compatibility, this has it hands down. But that's a totally different category. When it comes to this one, this rail, the Picatinny rail, is also pretty standard, and you can basically find any type of light or attachment that has a Picatinny rail. So this was kind of hard to call, honestly. So I mean, honestly, they have a rail underneath the for the dust cover. So I'm just going to call that a wash for that category. So basically, overall, when it comes to features on the gun itself, I had to give the point to the Springfield Armory Echelon. It just gives you more. I like this. I really like the Shadow Systems, but the Springfield Armory just gives you more. So let's move on from there, and we're going to talk about accessories. Okay, y'all, let's talk about the accessories. So with the accessories, it's just a numbers game. Which one has more? All right, so let's go through it. Both guns come with cable locks, safety, right? Both guns have interchangeable back straps. There's one on each of the guns, obviously, and they both have two. They serve different purposes. The Shadow Systems changes the angle of the grip, while the Springfield Armory Echelon changes the actual thickness of the grip. Plus, these also can serve as little mini punch tools, so there's that. So I'm just going to count those as they're on one piece each, okay? So let's talk about the optics mounting system. So with the Echelon, we have your different pin adapters. Pin set 1 is on the gun, and you have pin sets 2 and 3 for a total of 3. This particular gun only comes with the optics plate for the RMR footprint, but with that you also get these screws and these additional adapters to basically give it a flush fit depending on which optic that you're currently running. Disclaimer, the optics plate, I have it with my red dot, and I took the red dot off for the purpose of this comparison, so we do have that. So between that optics plate and this, you figure you match up between these two, and then that would leave just the extra pins on the actual Echelon itself. And we have like a little mini punch tool here, so which is really cool for driving out pins and changing the back strap. So we have that. So far it's pretty even as far as accessories goes. Then now the Echelon has a +3 grip extension, which I already have installed, hence why we have this standard magazine base plate for the 17 round magazine. So we have that. The Shadow Systems gives you a magazine well, which is also really cool. In case you were wondering, this is a polymer magazine well, but it's actually really durable, really robust. So there's that, and what we are left with essentially are some gun oil, Lucas gun oil, extreme duty. By the way, this right here, if you don't know about this, you need to learn about this. This is some high quality stuff, trust me. And we have some thread locker here, some blue Loctite for the optics mounting screws, which is really cool. And we also have some other accoutrements and different things like that. So, and both guns comes with 2 magazines, and each one comes with a range carrying bag. So, I mean, all total, Shadow Systems just comes with more stuff. So, that being said, I have to give the point of accessories to the DR920. Now, moving on to ammo capacity. Again, we're just going by the numbers. Ammo capacity is a very simple thing. How many rounds can each gun hold with all of its magazines from the factory? As you can see, both guns have 2 magazines. And regardless of the configuration, whether you have the 17 rounder and the 20 rounder or the 2 20 round magazines, it doesn't matter. The Echelon is going to win simply because it basically has 2 20 round magazines, or the ability to have 2 20 round magazines from the factory, versus the Shadow Systems 2 17 round mag pool. So ammo capacity goes to the Echelon. Pretty simple. From there, we're going to move on to portability slash concealability. Portability slash concealability. Simply put, how easy the gun is to conceal and how light it is, or how heavy it is, how easy it is to carry it around on your hip all day long. So let's take the magazine out of both. So for the most part, the Shadow Systems is a lighter gun. The Shadow Systems comes in at 23 overall ounces, while the Springfield Armory Echelon with the flush fit mag comes in at 23.9 ounces. With the extended mag, it comes in at 24.3 ounces. So just based on the weight, the Shadow Systems is going to win the portability, because simply put, it's lighter. Right now, let's talk about the profiles of the gun. So let's look at it. So basically, when it comes to length of slide, length of barrel, they're pretty comparable. Honestly, I think where the DR920 is going to win the conceal, even with the grip. It's kind of hard to show this on the camera, but let me just show it. Let me just do it like that. Grips are relatively the same length. Shadow Systems grip is a little flatter. The frame itself is also flatter, because the Springfield Armory has the thumb ledges here on both sides. So this is an overall thinner gun. Point blank period. And a thinner gun is going to be easier to conceal. All things being equal, portability slash concealability is going to go to the DR920. And just so you guys know, I do carry this as my EDC at sometimes. I've done it even in the summertime with the right holster. With the right holster and the right frame, you can EDC a full-size 9mm. Trust me, I've been doing it for years. Anyway, we're going to move on from there, and we're going to talk about ergonomics. All right, so ergonomically speaking, both guns are pretty ergonomic. I will say that it did take me a while to get used to the DR920, mainly because, again, I have larger mitts, and this is a pretty thin grip overall. So the length of pull is relatively short, and I tend to do better with a thicker grip than I do with a thinner grip. But that's not to say that, you know, if you have larger hands, that you can't master the grip on this particular gun. But I do like the fact that it has the texture, and this beaver tail, I gotta say, this beaver tail makes it very easy to kind of get in there, choke up high on the grip, lock it in with your thumb, and also with the shape of the grip, which again, you can change the shape of the grip with the back straps. You can really drive the bottom part of your hand into the bottom of this grip to keep your muzzle from dropping. So the grip of the gun, while it's not large, it's not ideal for me, you can definitely see that a lot of thought was put into the grip of the Shadow Systems DR920. Like, you can really tell the minute you grip it. And also, we have the undercut here, right underneath the trigger guard, right? So, of course, you don't have to worry about Glock knuckle. And then you had this additional cut here. So when you're coming in with your support hand, you can really, like, get up under there with that finger, which is really good. And, of course, you have the thumb ledge here with the additional texture. So you can really get on the gun. And honestly, even though the grip is kind of small for me in a little bit, but I still like the ergonomics of the DR920. It's actually really good, in my opinion. Now we move on over to the Springfield Armory Echelon. The Echelon has a slightly wider grip, plus I can thicken the grip with the back straps, which is really good. And we also have an undercut, but the way they did their undercut is that it's further up here, and we have the texture. Plus, we also have the texture here. But in my opinion, where even though this grip is a little bit on the small side, just so you know, also to digress a little bit, this is the medium grip module. This is the one that comes from the factory. But back to what I was saying. So even though this is a little small for my hands, I can still really grip this gun relatively comfortably. It doesn't have the beaver tail that the Shadow Systems DR920 has. But to me, where it makes up for that is the undercut and the trigger guard. And the big thing are the thumb ledges. So these thumb ledges really makes it easier to drive that thumb in and control that recoil. Like, it is a lot easier to get on that guy. So that's one thing I really like about the Springfield Armory Echelon. The thicker grip, plus the fact that I could use more of the frame to really control that recoil. It just sells it for me. So that being said, I have to give the point of ergonomics over to the Springfield Armory Echelon. All right, so from there, let's talk about disassembly and maintenance. All right, disassembly and maintenance. So real quick, let's take the magazine out of the Shadow Systems and let's do a quick clear check. So this gun, you take it down very similar to a Glock. If you know about a Glock, then you know how it goes. So here's the takedown button here. We just gonna pull that back a little bit. Pull the trigger, slot comes off, and then you have your recoil spring, and then you have your barrel, and then it's field stripped so you can clean it much to your heart's desire. Now, Echelon. Echelon is a little simpler, a little easier in my opinion. Run that guy back, rotate the takedown lever all the way down, release the slide, pull it right off. And you can take your recoil spring and guide rod off and do what you need to do. So if I had to call it, I would say that the Echelon is easier to break down for maintenance, simply because you have a lever here versus the Glock style button here. And if anybody that's been running Glocks for any length of time, they will tell you, if you get crap, junk, dirt, sand, whatever up underneath this takedown button, it is extremely difficult to field strip your gun. So simply put, a lever is just more efficient and it's better, and you know, it's easier for, especially for novices, to really get used to, you know, stripping to maintain their firearm. So when it comes to disassembly and maintenance, I have to give the point over to the Springfield Armory Echelon. So from there, let's talk about aftermarket support. All right, so when it comes to aftermarket support, I just got to be honest, this is really not a fair fight in my opinion, simply because Glocks are probably one of the most ubiquitous modern polymer frame striker fire handguns that in the world today, period. There are copies of, you know, Glock clones all over the place. This is a Gen 3 Glock clone for all intents and purposes. And the way they made the Shadow Systems, they made it basically to be able to use the Glock aftermarket. So that means you got holsters, you got magazines, you got sights, you got, you know, lights, lasers, just about damn near anything you could think of, you know, replacement parts. As long as it's Gen 3 compatible, it's probably compatible with the DR920. I mean, and like, frankly, aftermarket support is really, it's not a fair fight. The Springfield Armory Echelon is new to the game. The aftermarket support is growing, and I'm sure it'll get there over time, but it just cannot compete with the huge aftermarket support that the Shadow Systems DR920 has, simply because it's based on the Glock platform. So, simply put, aftermarket support goes to the Shadow Systems DR920. Now, let's move on to the MSRP. Now, as far as the MSRP is concerned, the DR920 has a MSRP of $1,064, while the Springfield Army Echelon has an MSRP of $719. Now, granted, the street prices for both guns will vary depending on where you are and where you find them. Generally speaking, they're going to come in less. I've paid substantially less for both of mine, and I bought both of my guns new, just so you know. But anyway, simply put, as far as the MSRP, the Springfield Army Echelon is going to take that category because, well, frankly, it's cheaper than that of this iteration of the DR920. Now, just as a disclaimer, though, Shadow Systems also came out with their Foundation series, which is basically, you know, the same gun, just with less slide serrations, standard barrels, and less bells and whistles. And it will come at a much cheaper price than the Elite version of the DR920, which you see here. And actually, the Foundation series, the cost of the Foundation series is actually pretty much on par with that of the Echelon. So I just wanted to put that out there in case you might be thinking about looking to get either one. If you go with the Foundation series of the DR920, the price is going to be very similar to that of the Echelon. But if you want all the bells and whistles that the Elite version has, you're going to pay Elite money. So MSRP category goes to the Echelon. Next, we're going to talk about the value for your dollar. This particular one is always difficult to quantify, and simply put, again, it's one of those subjective categories. But the way I look at it is simply this: what do you get for the amount of money that you spend? So let's just talk about that. With the Shadow Systems, you have a lot going on here with the Elite version, the Combat Elite of the DR920. And granted, yes, you are paying $1,000. The MSRP is about $1,000. The street price is probably be somewhere less than that. But let's just say, for to keep things simple, you're going to spend about $1,000 for this. So what are you getting with your $1,000? Well, for one, you're getting a gun that's based on one of the most reliable polymer frame striker fire handguns in the world, which is the Glock. You're getting good sights right out of the box, blacked out rear, night tritium glow front sight in the front, which a lot of people like. They like that sight picture more so than, you know, other ones. Just trying to show it off to the camera. But anyway, you get the idea, right? And you get a lot of features with this particular gun that if you were to buy a Glock and get this work done, you're going to spend a lot more than $1,000 just to get everything done to a standard Glock 17 that you would get on a Shadow Systems DR920 from the factory. So like, you simply just can't deny that. And you get a nice carrying case, and you saw all the different accessories that the DR920 has when we did the accessories portion, so that's really good. Now, if you're looking at the Echelon here, I mean, really, you're getting a really good gun with the Springfield Army Echelon. Don't get me wrong, you're getting a really good gun, great ergonomics, slide serrations, a really good trigger. I know I haven't talked about the trigger much, but the trigger in the Echelon is actually really good. And you're getting a lot of capacity, even though you have 2 magazines. You know, you're getting really good sights. This particular one, again, this is the night sight option. The other one is the one with the tritium glow front sight and the U-notch rear. But either way, and you get the cold hammer forged barrel. But I mean, either way, like I said, you're getting a really good gun. But at the same time, I think it's kind of on par with most of the other guns in its class in terms of what you're getting from the factory for the price that you're paying, and also with all of the accessories and so on and so forth. So that being said, I'm going to give the point for the value for your money over to the DR920. Simply put, because like I said, for this gun, if you wanted to take a standard Glock 17 and make it look like the DR920, if you take the cost of a Glock 17 and add it to the work that needs to be done, it is going to be, you're going to spend more money rather than, you know, over to just buying a DR920 with everything already set up and ready to go. So even more so if you get a non-MOS version of the Glock 17. But anyway, I'm giving a point for the value for your dollar over to the DR920. All right, that being said, the last category we're going to talk about today is going to be shootability / reliability. Now that the results are in, let's talk about that. So, for round 1, for the 5-yard target, I counted 17 hits for the DR920. At the 7-yard mark, I counted 16 hits and 1 miss. And at the 10-yard mark, I counted 13 hits and 4 misses, bringing the total for round 1 for the DR920 to 46 hits and 5 misses. Now, for the Springfield Echelon, for the 5-yard mark, we had 17 hits. For the 7-yard mark, we had 16 hits and 1 miss. And for the 10-yard mark, we had 15 hits and 2 misses, bringing the grand total for the Echelon for 48 hits and 3 misses. Now that's round 1. So far after the end of the round 1, the Echelon is in the lead by 2. Now round 2 is where things get interesting. So for round 2, for the 5-yard target, we had 17 hits for the DR920, 14 hits and 3 misses for the 7-yard mark, and 15 hits and 2 misses for the 10-yard mark. Now over to the, by the way, and that brings the DR920's round 2 total to 46 hits and 5 misses. Now, if we go over to the Echelon, for the 5-yard mark, we had 17 hits. For the 7-yard mark, we had 17 hits again. And for the 10-yard mark, we had 13 hits and 4 misses, bringing the total for the Echelon from round 2 to 47 hits and 4 misses. Now, so if we tally up all the numbers between rounds 1 and 2, the grand total is 92 hits for the DR920 and 10 misses. For the Springfield Army Echelon, we have 95 hits and 7 misses, giving the win to the Springfield Echelon for the shootability portion of this versus video. That said, the half a point got to go to the Echelon. The numbers speak for themselves. Now, as far as the reliability goes, from the standpoint of the guns themselves, both guns have been reliable throughout not only the Versus series, but also throughout the reviews and testing and just going to the range in general. I haven't had a stoppage or a malfunction out of either gun since I've had them, so I have to give that a wash. Now, granted, yes, I know about the magazine issues that a lot of other people are experiencing, and I just wanted to, I don't want to glance over that. But as far as the inner workings of the guns themselves, and as far as feeding and things like that, I haven't experienced any issues with that. So that, I got to call it a tie. So, all right, y'all. So let's tally up the scores and see where we're at and close this thing out, shall we? All right, y'all, to sum things up, here's where we're at. Starting from the top, features. The point goes to the Springfield Army Echelon. Accessories, that point goes to the DR920. Ammo capacity, that point goes to the Echelon, while ergonomics also go to the Echelon. For the portability / concealability portion, both half points go to the DR920. Reason being, it's slightly lighter and it's slightly flatter, easier to conceal than that of the Echelon. Disassembly, that point goes to the Echelon because of the takedown lever design. That one rotates down while the other one just uses a standard Glock takedown system. Aftermarket support, that point goes to the DR920. Simply put, it shares the aftermarket with the 3rd gen Glock, so there's just no comparison with that one. MSRP, that point goes to the Echelon. The reason being, the MSRP is a few $100s less than that of the Elite version of the DR920. And since this version of the Echelon, as of the recording of this video, is the top tier model that they have available, that is a fair comparison between the two. Moving on from there, the value for the dollar at that point goes to the DR920. Reason being, with all of the work that was done to the slide, reducing the reciprocating mass, the fluting of the barrels, and the additional work on the frame, etc., to get that added to a stock Glock 17 or even a Foundation Series DR920, you're going to come in well over the price point of just buying an Elite DR920 from the factory. So that's why that gets the point. As far as the Echelon goes, the Echelon is still a great gun. I would argue that it's pretty baseline as far as, the other guns in its class, as far as its feature set. So again, that's why I gave the point to the DR920 in that case. And that brings us to the shootability slash concealability, the shootability slash reliability. So for reliability, both guns have been very reliable for me. I have not had not one gun-related malfunction between the two since I've had them. And I have over 1,000 rounds out of both guns. So let me just say that from the gate. Now, in terms of the magazine issues as far as the Springfield Army Echelon, I am aware of them. And I know that there are a number of other people who've had issues with the magazines. However, again, like I stated before, I have not had any gun-related issues in terms of reliability at all. I haven't even had any feeding relating issues, and I know the magazines are integral to feeding the rounds. I haven't experienced that at all, so therefore they get a tie for that. Shootability, the number speaks for themselves. The Echelon won that one. The Echelon won that one, and I have to give the half a point there, which brings us to a grand total of 4 points for the DR920 and 5.5 points for the Springfield Army Echelon, making the Springfield Army Echelon the winner of this Versus series. All right, with that being said, let me give y'all my final thoughts. All right, y'all, so in closing, first, let me just say why I felt as though that the results of the shootability portion was interesting. First of all, one thing that I noticed right away is that the recoil impulse of the DR920 is a lot lighter than that of the Echelon, simply because, like I said, all the work that was done to the slide. And it was noticeable, the Echelon is noticeably snappier than that of the Shadow Systems DR920. So going into this, plus I have more shooting experience with the DR920 because I've had it a lot longer. So going into this, I thought that my performance with the DR920 would be better than that of the Shadow Systems, but what it actually turns out, it turned out to be the reverse. So I didn't expect that. And that's also another reason why I like to do the point system when I do my versus, when I do my comparison videos, because even though there's a lot of subjectivity involved when you're trying to compare two different things to one another, I try to keep it as objective as I can. So that's why I have points, and I award points based on which, what I already stated before, right? So that's why I said it is interesting. I did not expect the Echelon to win this versus, but at the same token, I really like both guns. I really enjoy both guns. So, I'm cool with the results. Like I said, I just didn't expect it. But anyway, what do you guys think? Would you pick the DR920 over the Springfield Army Echelon? Would you pick the Echelon over the DR920? Sound off down in those comments and let me know what you think. As always, like I always say, the point of these videos is just to give you guys a baseline for your comparisons, just to kind of help you shop. If you're thinking about picking up either one, these are just some of the things that you could look at and think of, as you're going through your buying process. But like I always tell people, make sure that you can try the gun out before you buy it, because you don't want to spend several hundred, maybe even $1,000 or a couple $1,000s depending on the gun, and you get it and you don't like it. You know, it doesn't do you any good to have a gun that you don't like, because you're not going to carry, you're not going to train with it, and ultimately you're going to suck with it. All right, so anyway guys, thank you for watching these videos. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to let y'all go. This is your big homie, the Armchair Operator, and I'm signing off, man.